Have you been thinking about moving to Phoenix and you don't know if you should go to the East Valley or the West Valley? Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're going to compare Phoenix East Valley to the West Valley. So first of all, the Phoenix metropolitan area is huge. Maricopa County, which is the county where Phoenix and the suburbs are located, is about the size of Vermont, coming in around a little over 9,000 square miles. So typically speaking, in Phoenix, we divide the area into East Valley and West Valley. Now there's other parts of Phoenix, including Central and Scottsdale, that we won't discuss today, and even the area of Paradise Valley. The East Valley is generally considered these towns: Mesa, Tempe, Guadalupe, Gilbert, Chandler, Queen Creek, and even Apache Junction, which is actually in Pinal County. Meanwhile, the West Valley is generally considered to be comprised of these towns: Buckeye, Goodyear, Avondale, El Mirage, Surprise, Litchfield Park, Glendale, Peoria, and the areas around Sun City and Waddell. So the East Valley and the West Valley always have a little bit of a rivalry going on. And there actually are a lot of misconceptions about East Valley versus West Valley. We'll talk about some of those, and you might be surprised at what we find out. Let's start by talking about growth and population. Now, the East Valley's developed more than the West Valley, but general consensus is that the West Valley is where all the growth is now. And that kind of makes sense because it's getting harder and harder to find land in the East Valley. And in fact, two cities in the West Valley have been among the top for growth, according to the U.S. Census from 2019 to 2020. Buckeye, Arizona is number 2. Meanwhile, its neighbor, Goodyear, is number 14 in the U.S. Now let's look at home starts in the East Valley and West Valley because they paint a different picture. So in the fourth quarter of 2019, the East Valley had 32% of the new home starts. Meanwhile, the West Valley came in at 29%. So the East Valley is still reigning over the West Valley in terms of growth. Predictions for the future, though, are for the West Valley to take over as they have more land and good freeways with access. In fact, the Western Maricopa Coalition predicts that in the next 25 years, that 43% of the growth will be in the West Valley. Now let's talk about employment and income. The East Valley is viewed as having more and higher paying jobs. Of the top 25 employers in the Phoenix area, 7 are in the East Valley, and they include companies like Boeing and Intel. The West Valley, on the other hand, only has one company in the top 25 of employers, and that's the grocery company Kroger. Now let's talk about income. Let's look at the top 10 zip codes for household income in the Phoenix metropolitan area. 3 of those zip codes you'll find on the east side in Tempe, Chandler, and Gilbert, and only 1 on the west side located in Peoria. So these figures do tend to support the perception that the East Valley does have higher paying jobs than the West Valley. The west side tends to have a perception as maybe being more of a blue collar job center than a high-tech job center. But this is changing. Interestingly, healthcare is the top business sector for the West Valley above warehouse and distribution. In fact, 35% of Metro Phoenix healthcare workers, 32% of finance and insurance workers, and 35,000 computer tech and IT workers live in the West Valley. So while the East Valley does tend to have more jobs and higher paying jobs overall than the West Valley, things are shifting as the West Valley is becoming more and more a center for high-tech and healthcare workers. Now let's talk about entertainment and recreation. The East Valley really has been known as a hotspot for entertainment and resorts. And in fact, a lot of people come out to the Phoenix area and never even make it to the West Valley. But things are starting to change. We now have the Phoenix Cardinals Stadium in the West Valley, we have the Coyotes Arena in the West Valley, and we have Phoenix Raceway in the West Valley for NASCAR fans. And when it comes to spring training, the West Valley has 4 spring training facilities that host 8 different teams, while the East Valley has 3 facilities that host 3 teams. So there's more and more reason for people that are visiting the area to come out to the West Valley, as well as people within the valley to come over to the West Valley and check out the sports teams and other activities going on. And both sides of the valley have some great recreational outdoor activities such as golf, boating at the lakes, and hiking in trails. In the West Valley, we have Lake Pleasant, and for the East Valley folks, they can head just a little bit north to Bartlett and Saguaro Lakes. Phoenix is said to have some of the best urban hiking in the nation. It's completely surrounded by mountains on the outer parts of the valley. On the east side, you have the Santan Mountains and the Superstition Mountains just outside of Maricopa County. While on the west side, you have the Sierra Estrellas and the White Tank Mountains. So when it comes to entertainment and restaurants, I would give the East Valley an edge, but when it comes to sports and outdoor recreation, I would give that edge to the West Valley. Now let's talk about traffic and transportation. The general perception is that the West Valley is less congested than the East Valley, and that kind of makes sense because there's more people in the East Valley, there's more businesses, there's more entertainment and that kind of thing, which causes more traffic. But I can tell you lately, the west side, the traffic's been getting worse, and a lot of that reason has to do with growth, but also because of freeway construction. I was surprised though to look at the numbers. I ran numbers comparing commutes that were similar from the west side of town to Central Phoenix and then also the east side of town. So I compared rush hour commutes to Central Phoenix from Goodyear and Mesa at points that were about the same distance. And I was really surprised to find out that the commutes were almost the same. The Mesa commute came in at between 30 and 55 minutes variance. The Goodyear commute was almost exactly the same with a variance of 28 to 50 minutes. Another thing that the East Valley has that the West Valley doesn't is access to light rail with routes from Tempe into Phoenix currently, and the ability to expand into some other East Valley cities. There really isn't anything on the map for the near future for the West Valley when it comes to light rail. Now let's compare schools and education. Deciding on the best schools for your family is a really personal choice, and the information that's out there can be very subjective. The general perception is that the East Valley has better schools than the West Valley. So let's go to niche.com where they compared school districts for 2020 in the Phoenix area. The top 10, 3 are located in the East Valley. They are Chandler Unified, Gilbert Unified, and Tempe Union High School. And 2 are in the West Valley, Peoria Unified School District and Deer Valley Unified School District. One area where the East Valley beats the West Valley is in the number of charter schools. If you're looking for a charter school for your student, you will find more options in the East Valley. However, with its growth, you're finding more charter schools coming to the West Valley. And so that's giving parents in the West Valley more choices than they've had before. Now let's talk about safety. And this is another area that is very subjective. There really is no place that is 100% safe, but I will say, I think the West Valley gets a little bit of a bad rap here. So let's go to the website SafeWise, which ranked the top 20 safest cities in Arizona for 2020. According to this website, the West Valley had 5 of the safest cities. They include Surprise, Buckeye, El Mirage, Peoria, and Goodyear. While 3 cities in the East Valley made the list, including Gilbert, Chandler, and Mesa. So I'm not going to go as far as to say the West Valley or the East Valley is a safer area, because within each of these individual cities, crime rates can vary from zip code to zip code, and even within zip codes from neighborhood to neighborhood. So when you're looking at this topic, you really need to do your homework and delve in further. Look at the statistics, but go even further. Drive the neighborhood around the home you're interested in. Go through there in the morning, the evening, and the afternoon, and also during the week and the weekends, and talk to neighbors. You will find some of the best information, not only about crime and safety, but other things in your neighborhood by just chatting with the neighbors. Now let's talk about the cost of living comparing the two areas, West Valley versus East Valley. Generally speaking, the West Valley is considered to be a lower cost, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the cost of housing is less. But you'll be surprised that some things are less expensive in the East Valley. So let's take a look at the website bestplaces.com. It has some really good comparisons where you can take different cities and compare the cost of living. What I've found, generally speaking, is that transportation and utilities are less expensive in the East Valley. And as someone who has lived in the East Valley and West Valley, I can tell you that the utilities in the East Valley do tend to be lower. There you have the company Salt River Project that is your major electrical provider. And over in the West Valley, for the most part, we have APS, which tends to be a little higher. The transportation one was a little bit of a surprise to me. The only thing I can figure there is that commutes might be a little bit less for folks in the East Valley because things are closer, such as much of the job opportunities over there. So the big one though is housing costs, and that's really where the West Valley beats out the East Valley. The median price for a home in the West Valley right now is running about $288,000. Meanwhile, in the East Valley, you're looking at about $348,000. So the West Valley definitely has an edge on housing, and for that reason, I'm going to give the West Valley an edge when it comes to overall cost of living. So that's East Valley versus West Valley. If you like this video, check out these over here, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm Amy Hayslett, Realtor. Bye-bye.